Okay, so we looked at all these basic changes, and I said I'd show you one last thing, which was to make changes to your image just using brushes that will allow you to make changes to just little parts of the image. So, how do you do that? Well, start by picking on the right hand side of your menu. You've got a few options here. You've got your edit tab, cropping, which we'll explore in detail another time, spot healing brush, which can be useful, and then your mask tool. Um, so masking is incredibly useful, and um, it allows you to paint an area of the image that you want to make changes to. The quickest way, by the way, to get to where you want to be is just to press K. And by pressing K, you should get um, some adjustment brush options. Now let's take a look at this lady's eyes. They're a bit too dark at the moment. So I'm going to turn the exposure up. Sometimes it's quite useful to turn it up really, really high at first because I can always turn it down. And then I'm going to start painting onto this lady's eyes. Now, what is super, super useful is that the square brackets next to the P on your keyboard change the size of that brush up and down. So I'm going to bring my brush size down a bit and I'm going to start painting onto this lady's eyes. And that is going to bring a little bit more exposure on them so they're not being quite so buried. So what I've done here, and I've got my eye there, so that's how the eye was before, that's how it is now. I can now see that eye a lot more clearly than I did before. Remember, Control minus and Control plus allow you to zoom in and out, and if I turn that off or on, that's how it was without, that's how it is now. So those eyes are no longer being buried. If I think it's too much, I can change the exposure here. Look, there I'm making her really dark eyes. There, that's nice. That's nice about there. So I can see that um, her eyes are way, way clearer with that little adjustment brush. I went over that quite quickly, so I'm going to show you another way I could do this. Um, let's say I want to reduce the sharpness on her cheek areas. There are a few blemishes which is entirely natural, and we probably Photoshop stuff far too much already, but at the same time, I don't know, she might appreciate it. If I just, I'm not going to spend ages photoshopping out so it looks like she's got perfect, perfect skin. But if I could just make it a little bit smoother, maybe she'd be grateful. I don't know. So I'm going to click up here to create a new mask, and it'll be a brush mask here. And this time I'm going to change my settings to have a lot less sharpness, and I'm going to increase my brush size using my square brackets next to the P, and I'm going to zoom in using Control plus and Control minus, and I'm just going to start painting on to these cheek areas. Now the change here is probably just too subtle. I can see it a little bit when I turn mask 2 on and off. A little bit less sharpness, but maybe I need to also try bringing a bit less texture in there. And I might carry on painting onto this side of her cheek as well. So again, we're dealing with really quite subtle changes. Whether you'll actually be able to see them um, on a YouTube